Hello, good morning. Good to see everyone again this morning. This morning we're going to kick things off with a conversation between Paul and Melanie Lundquist of the Partnership for Los Angeles Schools and Superintendent Alberto Carvalho. Melanie Lundquist is one of California's most influential philanthropists. She's focused much of her philanthropic work on strengthening education in Los Angeles. In 2007, she co-founded the Partnership for Los Angeles Schools, and that is an effort she's given $85 million to support. The partnership has grown into one of the nation's largest in-district public school transformation organizations. It includes a number of Los Angeles or LAUSD schools and serves over 16,000 students. In the past 2 years, the academic growth of students in partnership schools has actually outpaced every mid-sized school district's growth in the state of California. Melanie is currently vice chair of the partnership's board, where she works on public-private collaborations that are designed to improve student outcomes in low-income schools. Next up is Alberto Carvalho. He's superintendent of Los Angeles Unified School District. A Florida legislator this morning referred to him as the LeBron James of superintendents.
We'll take it.
Superintendent Carvalho's been the recipient of numerous honors at local, state, and national levels, including being named National Superintendent of the Year. Prior to joining LA Unified, he was superintendent of Miami-Dade Public Schools, where he took over in 2018 in Miami when the district was facing a number of different challenges. There were many DNF schools. The district had very low graduation rates, and it was under financial distress. Superintendent Carvalho took over and spearheaded a number of reforms that dramatically improved student outcomes in the district. Graduation rates went up, and he eliminated F schools altogether in the district. After taking over as superintendent at Los Angeles Unified in 2022, he quickly put his stamp on the district. LAUSD students have recently shown, I understand, their highest academic growth on record, and students have now surpassed their pre-pandemic achievement levels, and that's across the board. So Black, Latino, low-income students, students with disabilities, youth in foster care, they're all above their pre-pandemic achievement levels. And I also understand that Superintendent Carvalho recently got a new contract extension that he didn't even ask for, but got one, and even turned down a salary increase. So welcome to our two speakers, and I'm going to turn the floor over to Paul.
Well, thank you, Daniel. Melanie, can I call you Melanie?
Absolutely.
It's been so great getting to know you in the last couple of days, and I have really enjoyed getting to know about your partnership with the Los Angeles schools. How did that begin?
The interest we have is really very simple. Each generation has a responsibility for the next generation.
Should we pull up the mic so that?
Oh,
yeah,
that would be helpful.
yeah.
Is that better? Yeah. That's better, much better. Yeah. I want to be heard for sure. Each generation has a responsibility for the generations that follow. But at the same time, this was very personal to both Richard and myself. We're both alums of Los Angeles Public Schools, LA Unified, and we wanted the students that are there today and around the country to get the same very high quality education that we received. I got a fabulous education in Los Angeles Unified. And we looked for a very long time to find an organization that actually could create systemic change for our nation's traditional K through 12 public schools. We all know we're systemically broken, and it's not enough to address just the symptoms of the issue. it's important to address the disease. And we can address the symptoms all day, every day, but we're going to have to keep addressing them and addressing them and addressing them, because we're not going to the underlying disease, systemic breakage. Our kids are not just our future, they're actually our only future. And so, so when we couldn't find an organization, we looked for about 20 years that did this. We just decided we'll build it. We'll take the easy way out. We'll build it.
I think there's a lot of people in the room who have done something similar, so they appreciate just how difficult a task that is.
And we partnered within our mayor of Los Angeles, Antonio Villagrosa, to create the Partnership for Los Angeles Schools. We took on about 22 of the highest need schools in the district at the time. All of our schools were in the lowest 5%. I was a little, excuse me. I was a little bit mortified that LAUSD was just littering the country with our dropouts. Very disproportionate number of dropouts. And it was the second largest district in the country. And if we can do it there, we can do it anywhere. It's a proof point. And that really made us happy. We're non-charter, in-district transformation effort, working inside to fix it from the bottom up and the inside out. If you don't work inside the system, you will never know what the obstacles are, and you will never have the opportunity to figure out what the solutions are. And it had to have capacity, scalability, and sustainability. So everything we're doing is for $850 per year per student.
Now, let me ask you a question about that, because that's a large sum of money at one level, but it costs a lot more than that.
Yes.
How do you leverage that money? So this is a problem that philanthropists face all the time.
Right.
How can your philanthropic money leverage large-scale change? So how did you do that?
Well, we knew there's no quick fixes in public education, but when you commit to a long-term vision, when you empower teachers, you support school leaders, and you bring families into the fold, 3 pillars, that's when you have the opportunity to create real change. It was about, as I said a few minutes ago, working within the system to leverage those dollars, not outside, so that we could prove that systemic change is possible. As I mentioned, it was capacity, scalability, and sustainability. And we always envision this as a national model, because that's the only way we can ensure that success can be replicated. So nearly 2 decades later, the partnership has proven that when you do make systemic change, you can transform outcomes at scale, and for the long term as well.
So how many schools are there that are in the partnership?
There are 20 schools in the partnership now. They are in South Los Angeles, Watts, and Boyle Heights. Highest poverty in Los Angeles, highest need schools, highest need in every way, shape, and form.
Are they both elementary and secondary
They're
schools?
K through 12 with feeder patterns. We knew that we wanted to make sure that we had these feeder patterns, because otherwise you'd get the kids in elementary school and get them really shaped up, and then they'd go to middle school and, But fortunately for the partnership, we have in this gentleman to my left a remarkable superintendent.
Well, let's bring in the voice of the superintendent here, Melanie. I have to criticize, Daniel Hamlin's done a wonderful job over the course of the conference here, but he made one mistake this morning, I have to tell you. He forgot to mention that Superintendent Carvalho has been knighted twice. He's a twice knighted knight. I think, he deserves it because how many superintendents have served in the role as long as he has? But he's been knighted by the Spanish government, and even more important, he's been knighted by the Portuguese government. So, Sir Alberto, do you have any observations on?
You've given me more honor than my wife and daughter combined in this moment. Well, number one, good morning, everybody. I'm so blessed with the fact that I was here last year, and alongside Melanie this time, we're back here at Harvard for this very important conversation. Number one, I want to reflect a little bit on everything that Melanie has said. I, as a public school district superintendent, both East Coast and now West Coast, believe fervently in the power of, number one, reasonable choice to be provided by the district to all students and parents. I realized that in Miami. When I became superintendent in Miami in 2008, only about 30% of the students in Miami were availing themselves at whatever choice was available within the district. At the time I left, over 85% of the students were participating in choice programs. And with that, we saw a terrific evolution of performance from one of the lowest performing urban districts in America to arguably the highest performing urban district in the country, based on APE data in reading, mathematics, 4th and 8th graders, number 1 or 2 in the country in reading and mathematics. Graduation rate improving from 58% to 90% during that time period. And as you know, Florida is a high-stakes accountability state. You do not graduate without taking a number of prescribed end-of-year assessments, very, very strong third-grade retention policies, and students are assessed by the state every year. So you don't just eliminate what I inherited, which was dozens of F-rated failing schools and D-rated to first 0 F schools, then 0 D-rated schools, and then becoming the first statewide urban district to receive an A designation. Broad Prize Award-winning district. I could go on and on and on. Then I lost my mind and went to LA. And one thing, Paul, that I realized is that amazingly, and I think all of you know this, amazingly, the kids both in LA and in Miami, East and West Coast, have the exact same number of chromosomes. But the performance levels were vastly different. And what could explain that? That is why the partnership is so critically important. And now I'll tell you 3 reasons that detail the influence in a catalytic way that the partnership has had over Los Angeles Unified. Certainly before I arrived there, but even since I've arrived there. Number 1, you heard Melanie talk about the fact that failure should never be an option. And she decided to start with a cohort of schools that had the greatest needs. Highest level of poverty, highest level of English language limitation, one of the highest levels of disability in the district. So she started with the bottom of the bottom. By trusting high-quality leadership, emphasizing on highly effective teaching, and appropriate resources with curriculum materials that actually were proven to be effective. Number two, as she said, she believes in a viral infection. All of you represent various sectors of choice. Melanie's idea was not to create something outside of, but actually to use the equivalent of a virus that would produce its own DNA that would be spread across the district. It worked. The third level, which remains very, very valid today, is that the partnership, because of its much smaller size than Los Angeles Unified, 20 schools versus 1,100 schools, about 13,500 students compared to 540,000 students, it has the ability to, in a much more nimble way, to innovate, assess improvement, what works, what does not work, and then use that body of knowledge to inform the district as a whole. And we have adopted, since I've become superintendent, curricular approaches such as illustrative math, for wide implementation across the district based on what we were able to experiment in this terrific incubator called the partnership. So at all levels, it is doing well by the kids, it is producing valuable information that informs our theory of action and allows us to make terrific leaps without a huge district having to experiment because it's already been tried. This is the equivalent of, yes, I'm leading, and I've always have a huge aircraft carrier, so to speak. The partnership is a swift boat that informs the best way forward for a much larger entity.
Well, let me ask Melanie how she keeps that boat, that swift boat, tuned and ready to go. And how do you maintain your autonomy within this very large school district so that you can infect the district with this amazing, innovative capacity?
Well, first of all, all of the solutions that we come up with, this giant lab is all paid for by philanthropic dollars. And as I said earlier, $850 per student per year, which is really low. It's the impact over the entire district that we were going for. How we keep it going is we have a wonderful roster of donors, probably one of the best of any nonprofit in the country. And our donors are West Coast to East Coast, East Coast to West Coast. We keep it afloat by being this public-private partnership. Because what the public-private partnerships allows us to do is great collaboration. And when I grew up, everybody collaborated on everything. Today, everybody is siloed. So there's a lot of people doing the same thing. You know, everybody's trying to reinvent the wheel. And there's no point in spending the money reinventing the wheel umpteen times. Just do it the way that you know you can get the most impact. We've had fabulous leadership in the partnership. Fortunately, with this superintendent, it's been incredibly collaborative, really collaborative. And that's really the name of the game, is to be collaborative and find out what works. We're like this giant lab in Los Angeles Unified. You know, a lot of people said, why would you want to work in Los Angeles Unified? It's a proof point. Like I said earlier, we can do it there, we can do it anywhere. So we keep it afloat with private money. We keep it afloat with a lot of dedication of our team, our home team, which is 105 people. But more importantly, it's kept afloat because this superintendent understands what we're doing, understands the value, and we are actually, I would say, if superintendent would agree with me, we're having a lot of fun doing it. A lot of fun doing it. And all philanthropists want to make a difference. That's why they're there.
So one of the things that I think you're undertaking now, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you're trying to introduce some of the concepts from the science of reading into the teaching of math. And so can you describe a little bit of what you're doing in that space?
In the math, particularly, I love math. And so I had said to our last CEO, if we can figure out the key to math and teaching math well, that's really a big deal. Because when I was growing up, the United States of America was #1 in math and science. We are no longer #1, not even close, sadly enough. And so I had said to our former CEO of the partnership, I said, you know, if we can figure this out, that'll be like, you know, landing on the moon, one step for science or whatever they said when they got to the moon, which I don't remember. I should, because I was an adult when it happened. But we formed a math team inside of our home team. And that math team is unbelievable, unbelievably talented. And so they have been experimenting and working. And we went to the district and said, this is many years ago now, and said, okay, we don't want those textbooks. We want you to buy us a different textbook. And they said, but we have a 7-year contract with the publishers. We can't get out of it. And we said, may we look at the contract? So we looked at the contract in 5 little minutes. Here's how you get out of it. And they got out of it. And now, and the superintendent can speak to this, this is all going across all LAUSD schools. The Gates Foundation, absolutely, they are not doing quite as much with education anymore, but they absolutely loved what we were doing with math. And so they have funded us about $34 million in this math work, and the superintendent and I will be hosting a conference up in San Francisco. We started it last year. This will be our 2nd year. And we bring in the lowest performing school districts, superintendents and 1 or 2 people from their district of their choosing, to talk about what is our approach, why is it different. And it doesn't matter the textbook you use, it matters that the teachers get trained. They get handed a textbook and a training manual, there you go. It doesn't work that way. And so now we're going out to other districts in the state of California with this math and how we have managed to do it.
So already I think the math scores in Los Angeles Unified have come back to pre-COVID levels. And how important is this innovation for the improvements you're seeing in students' performance, Alberto?
Yeah. Critically important. I mean, so when I arrived in LA, it was February of 2022, and a large sector of Los Angeles Unified was, in essence, still closed as a result of the pandemic. Miami, we had reopened schools about a year earlier. We certainly learned a lot, and I hope we continue to learn, to not repeat the mistakes that we made that so deeply impacted kids. The learning loss in LA was one of the most aggressive in the country. The rate of mortality as a result of COVID in LA was also one of the highest in the country, unfortunately. So part of our moral imperative was to accelerate the recovery, but not stop at simply recovering back to pre-pandemic levels, because pre-pandemic achievement levels were nothing to brag about. They were woefully low. Particularly as you disaggregated the data and you asked the question, how are poor kids doing? How are Latino kids, black kids, kids in foster care? So we went to work, and I have to say that what Melanie just detailed, particularly the work around mathematics and the influence that the Gates investment had, not in procuring and acquiring instructional materials, but really the analysis of what's working, what's not working, has deeply informed the district. And this is one of those examples where we went from a curricular approach in, quite frankly, the Achilles heel of Los Angeles Unified, mathematics, because teaching in mathematics, unlike language, unlike reading, it builds on previous concepts. If you miss out on a few concepts at the bottom, you're lost forever. And that was the case. Through IM, illustrative math, it was first tried based on best practice in research in the partnership schools, and then was implemented district-wide. So let me tell you what the results have been. In mathematics, last year, all schools, all grade levels, across the district, mathematics and all subgroups improved in a very statistically significant way. This year, the same thing, but this year's improvements were double-digit, which is unheard of in the state of California, certainly unheard of in Los Angeles. So we saw, as a result of a very coherent approach towards the teaching of mathematics, explosive growth in performance. In fact, 2 weeks from now, the state will release in a formal way the state assessment results. And I know the group has varying degrees of appreciation for performance and assessment, but the state will be telling the story of the entire state. Last year, we improved in math at 3.5 times the rate of improvement of the state, and language arts reading at 2.4 times the rate of improvement of the state. This year's analysis of our own data, because we have not been able to compare ourselves to the state, but I can tell you based on what we've seen this year, in reading and math, but particularly mathematics, is double-digit improvement in terms of reduction of distance from standard. Here's the standard for reading and math at all grade levels, and part of our measure is how much can we reduce where students currently are in terms of performance from the expected performance aligned with standard. Double-digit improvement is unheard of, number one, but then it gets better. Double-digit improvement. Now follow me here. All subject areas, reading, math, and science, all grade levels, and all student subgroups. For that to happen at the same time, meaning improvement at all levels, it's never happened in the history of Los Angeles, putting us in a position, as you stated earlier, that we have not only met, but have exceeded pre-pandemic levels, and then improved performance to the highest levels that Los Angeles Unified has ever reached. So something good is happening. Is it happening fast enough? Not for somebody like me. Are we done?
me.
Hell no. I mean, we are still below the surface level. A lot of work to do, but when you compare yourself to other districts in the country, and not that I'm competitive at all, or when we compare ourselves to the state of California, back-to-back years, across the board improvement in all areas, all categories, with a second year establishing a trend where you actually improve a double-digit level is something that cannot be ignored. And that would not have happened, particularly in mathematics, without that catalytic effort that the partnership developed. It worked in 20 schools. The research was compelling. So we decided to do the right thing, which is don't try something with students that's never been done before without some degree of peer-reviewed research behind it. Why don't you try what has been proven to actually be effective and be serious about it? Train your teachers. Implement strategies where across the board during the summer, everybody gets to learn how to do the practice better. And we're seeing the result of that this year.
Well, yeah, I think it's time,
I just want to add one thing. Our commitment to the partnership, we're in our second 10-year commitment. Our first commitment was 10 years. This commitment is 10 years. There's probably going to be a third commitment of 10 years. I will be 100, but oh well. You know, it keeps me young and it keeps me going. But that's one thing that is very, very important. You've got, and this is why I so appreciate having this superintendent leading LAUSD. He's in it for the long haul. I'm in it for the long haul. So many times people try something, oh, it's working kind of, but not where we'd really like to be. And so as a result, they stop and try something else. You've got to persevere. And I think that's what's really been missing with philanthropy and education, or philanthropy and everything. You've got to persevere. And I've had development officers look at me and say, I've been in this field 36 years and I've never been able to get a donor to go beyond 4 years. How did they get you to do that? Well, it was my idea. That's how. I knew it could not be solved in 2, 3, 5, or 10. It's not going to be. It's a work in progress. But when you have people that collaborate with you and appreciate what you're doing, it makes all the difference in the world.
Well, I think that with those words, let's turn it over to you all and I see some hands up out there over here. The mic is being gathered.
Hi. First of all, thank you for all the work you're doing and you're sharing. It's beautiful. You're talking about, I think you mentioned reading, math, and science. Is there any measure, or have you seen an impact in other things like health and wellness, art, other kind of like elective viewed creative sciences?
Yeah, thank you for the question. We have. So a bit of context. Our strategic plan, unlike the strategic plans of most educational institutions across the country, which are hundreds of pages long, dozens of goals, most of which are never really met. When I arrived in LA, we had no strategic plan and hadn't had one for 12 years. Very quickly, we put one together after aggressive consultation with the community, all stakeholders. And my rule is one, keep it simple. So we have only 4 goals. There's a literacy goal, a numeracy goal, a graduation and post-secondary success goal, meaning graduate kids, but then also ensure their success beyond high school, because 12 years of schooling isn't sufficient anymore. Kids need something more, college, career, technical education, something. But the 4th one speaks to your question. The 4th one really deals with joy and happiness, which we heard a lot about yesterday. It is actually embedded as part of a strategic priority of the school district. And we measure that on the basis of portfolio work that looks at social and emotional well-being of kids, looks at the happiness they feel in school, also is measured by surveying parents, teachers, and the students in terms of their own perception of the school. Is it safe? Is it happy? Is it supportive, right? And alongside the improvements of reading, math, and science, we have seen from last year to this year improvements across the board in terms of how students perceive their schooling environment as a nurturing, warm, supportive environment that is still rigorous. Parents are demonstrating also the same impression that they have of the schools their kids attend. And with that said, just like in reading and math, in as much as we celebrate the improvement from where we were, where we are today, we recognize that we are nowhere near where we need to be. Still a lot to recover from. Incredible harm was done to our kids as a result of social isolation, and I understand. I mean, we didn't know then what we know now. But it took quite a bit of while to exit from that level of depression and happiness, even suicidal ideation. I think we've overcome that. Now it's a matter of using all those inputs informed by a whole host of elements around our school system to really take our kids to the place where they need to be. Our kids are powerfully intelligent. I've never met a broken kid, but I certainly have come across and consulted and seen systems that break their dreams, their aspirations, and their possibility. And I'm here to reverse that, and that cannot be done in isolation. It is done with partners.
Well, Melanie, are you bringing music, art to the...
We're bringing everything, the whole arsenal. Because that's what that's what I had. See, I know what I had, so that's my basis for what should be. We should mention that our graduation rates when we started in 2007 were 35%, and we're now over 92%. Our college admissions have tripled, which is pretty amazing. And one of the important things that we did, because we are in very high poverty areas, we have implemented from day one a culture of expectation. And our kids were not used to that. They were used to just being considered, let's throw them in the trash. And as a result, I mean, I was out at one of our high schools, and I had been there the month before, and this young woman came over to me and asked if I remembered her. Well, fortunately, I did. And she said, so why are you here? What are you doing here? And I said, what do you mean, what am I doing here? She said, well, you were here last month. I said, well, can't I come back? And she said, well, why? And I said, well, try this one on, because you're worth it. And she said, nobody had ever said that to her before. And I said, well, let me apologize for all the people. She was a 9th grader. Let me apologize to you for all the people who should have said, you're worth it, and did not take that opportunity. I mean, it's the best journey of my life. I couldn't have asked for anything better. And the return on
Well, I
investment.
know one thing, it brings joy to give. And I think
Totally.
that is the secret of philanthropy,
It
is that
is.
you get joy from sharing with others.
It is a selfish activity because you get way more out of it than you ever put into it. And it is the most joyful thing in the world. It really, you're absolutely right, Paul. It's the most joyful.
Well, we have lots of hands up. Yes, right here. Oh, you need a mic, yes?
Morning. Thank you so much for the presentation and for the work that you all are doing. I have a question that I hope makes sense. So from what I understand, philanthropic dollars allow for flexibility. It allows for innovations. Some of them become best practices, and those best practices get transferred to the school district and scaled. And I wonder if one of the best practices is that innovation itself, or flexibility for innovation itself, is a best practice. And has this journey and this partnership allowed for additional flexibility to innovate within the within LASD for schools that are not part of the partnership?
It's a very good question. So you're absolutely right the way you described how it's currently working, right? Philanthropic investment leads to additional flexibilities within this small subgroup of schools. Those flexibilities lead to incredible innovation and practices that then are analyzed, researched, and to the extent they are successful, they are scaled up, they are magnified across Los Angeles Unified. That requires a great deal of courage, right? To say, we're going to pay attention to the tiny little swift boat, right? And that performance is going to inform the larger entity. Most people don't want that. They believe they can do it all by themselves because they are the big man or woman on campus. Wrong approach. To your second point, I believe in innovation. I believe in flexibilities. And the way we are now operating the system is one where this second largest in terms of student membership, but largest independent school district in the country, meaning outside of mayoral control, as is the case in New York City, where we not only support innovation and flexibilities, but actually it's part of our theory of action. What I mean by that is every single school in Los Angeles now is tier 1, 2, 3, on the basis of performance, a whole bunch of different indicators. I spend 90% of my time dealing with 10% of the schools. For those that have earned autonomy on the basis of performance, I tell them, go and continue to do your thing. By the way, they welcome that. They don't want me on their back. So there's a huge number of schools who, on the basis of performance, have the flexibility and autonomy to do whatever they want. And we support that. That allows me to actually overly dedicate my time and actually resource to the schools that historically have underperformed. So that's a tier 3 schools. By the way, that's 121 schools in the district, and they are accountable directly to me. I did the same thing in Miami. This is the Education Transformation Office, another model where we have seen the fastest growth. And by the way, some of the partnership schools, because they are part of us, are tier 3 schools, and they go through the same data dialogue with me. They have the same meetings with me. I am a superintendent who oversees, directly supervises, speaks with the communities and the principals of these lowest performing schools. But then we're also stimulating tier 1 improvement, because sometimes a great school is great on a basis of static performance. When we look at rate of improvement over time, they're really not moving up because they're all the way at the top. Then we ask the question, let's open up the curtain, and are all kids really performing really well, or is there a mean, an average that's really high, but there are some low-performing pockets of kids within that same school? And the answer invariably, no matter the district, is yes. So do we have the courage to actually stimulate improvement? We allow those principals to actually develop models to stimulate that improvement. So your question and assumption is correct. The level of innovation and efficiencies and flexibilities that the partnership has are being translated into a number of different cohorts of schools on the basis of performance, empowering people to do what is right by that community of learners.
So let's, we got to move on to our next session, but one last question. Oh boy, now, this is putting the burden on me. Okay, over here.
Thank you very much. My question is rooted in sort of replication. It seems to me that there are, in urban districts, there's sort of two models, the two poles that we could look at. One would be, probably most extreme would be New Orleans, and the others would be at LAUSD and in Miami. And I will admit a bias towards the New Orleans model. It seems more replicable to me. It seems at least different than previous years. And so I would love your reaction to that and challenge on that. And if you disagree, then the follow-up question would be, who is the Luka Doncic that we could look to if LeBron James isn't available?
What was the last?
Who is continuing with Dr. Hamlin's sports analogy? Who is the Luka to LeBron James and others that cities can find? How do we find these superintendents? Because your comments have been extraordinarily thought-provoking, but how do we replicate this in other cities?
Can you be replicated?
I mean, go and find your own $85 million Melanie in your district.
Melanie be replicated? That is the question. No, I mean,
Good luck with
these
that.
are big questions. I don't know that we. What do you think?
One of the things that the partnership did at our 10-year mark, we're 18 years in now, one of the things we did at the 10-year mark is we put out a playbook so that this can't, because this was always considered from our perspective to be a replicable model. And that's exactly, not only are we hoping and are transforming a district, which nobody else has tried before. They've tried to transform a school or a few schools, but a whole district, that takes a different kind of thinking and a different kind of vision. And your question is correct in the sense that how many people have his vision? How many people have my vision? You're absolutely right about that. But that's why we're going out and doing this conference in October in San Francisco, because it is replicable. And we do want to, our return on investment is already huge. $85 million is nothing compared to the fact that, a lot of philanthropists, they don't want to take money out of their family foundation because they want it to go on into perpetuity. The best way to go on into perpetuity is to fund things like this, where you change a life and every generation after that person's life is going to be changed.
Well,
My answer would be 15 seconds long. Look at the work that Denver Public Schools is doing under Alex Marrero. Look at the work that Nikolai Vitti is doing in Detroit, very low performing, but every year very, very significant improvement. Last point, I will never really opine on, because the nation gets caught up in this choice versus no choice. And what I say is do whatever is right and good for kids, period. For those who believe that choice somehow is going to retract, it's going to go away, I've been saying it now for 15 years. Harvard's published on this. Choice is a tsunami. Try outswim a tsunami. You'll drown. Try dive under it and hope it doesn't get you. You'll drown. You cannot outrun it if you're on land. The only way to actually manage the current time of choice is get yourself a surfboard and ride the top. So I'm a believer in choices here. So guess what? I'm going to deliver the best possible choice I can. And we see that in single-gender schools in Miami and now in LA. One of the highest-performing schools, an all-girls school, Gala. We see that in robotics programs and dual language programs whose performance is through the roof. We see that in district-managed charter schools, which I launched in Miami as the first in the country, now in LA, affiliated charter schools, independent charter schools. Bring it all. If it's good for kids, let's do it. Let's stop having the argument of choice versus no choice. Let's focus the argument on quality versus no quality, effective ways of teaching kids versus destructive ways that leave kids behind. And if we do that, trust me, we stop being number 26 or 30 in the world in reading and math, and actually we reassume that top level if we stop this bickering over governance and focus the effort over what's best for kids in our nation.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. All right,
Thank you,
thank you to the panelists. We'll get started again in approximately 5 minutes at 9:25. The next sessions will start.
I just want to really thank the superintendent and Harvard for doing this today and inviting me to be here with you. It's amazing, and there's nothing I like better than talking about this because it's so rewarding.
Thank you.
Thank you.